What's expenditure that takes us to IMF? I will just take a quick look at the current number of ministries. There are 23 of them. I will not list them for want of time. I have done a critical look, and I believe we can bring 23 down to 16, which is below the 19 number of cabinet ministers. And I will proceed to mention the 16 I recommend from 2024, and I'll be happy to see manifestos not saying they will cut down the ministries or they will have X number of ministers, but talk about specifically where the ministries will be and which ministries are going away. We need to know what goes into the manifesto. Ministry of Defense, local government, rural industry, I will maintain. Foreign Affairs and Regional Cooperation, I will. Interior, I will. Justice and Attorney General, I will. Ministry of Food and Agriculture, yes. Finance, yes. Trade, I will change the name to Trade and Business Affairs. If given, I'm recommending to the manifesto people. The reason is that the business aspect is actually not focused on. There was an attempt which was abandoned. Tourism should be maintained. Environment, science, and technology. But the environment, science, and technology should take over some of the functions which are really part of environment. Like, for example, works and housing and works and housing and water resources will be dropped because they are part of environment. Ministry of Energy, Lands and Natural Resources, Roads and Transport instead of roads and highways, and Ministry of Transport and Aviation and Railways and all that. They are all transport. We are not big enough like India. In fact, India has a Ministry of Railways, but India has got tens of thousands of railway lines. At peak, we had only 963 kilometers of railway line, of which we have less than 100 kilometers left. You can't have a ministry for that alone. But we've been having this for more than 20 years. Education, youth, sports, I will add women and children affairs to it. Health, and then employment and social welfare. Communications and Ministry of Information will vanish because they can be subsumed under other ministries. And information can be a presidential spokesperson. This will reduce the number of ministries to 16 and immediately cut government expenditure significantly. It's one of the things we ought to be looking at. So the manifesto should be telling us exactly how they will cut government expenditure. The other challenge has to do with the number of district assemblies, which has ballooned from 68. Under every government, it has been increased. We are now 275. It's a major problem that has to be addressed. There is no time for me to go into the details on this. 11, how to deliver infrastructure without bloating public sector debt. Every government has delivered on infrastructure in one way or the other, and there is still a gap on infrastructure. But it is where public sector debt gets bloated. There have been talk about PPPs for long, how you can recourse to the private sector without necessarily having unnecessary recourse to government. It is important that strategies be presented by all political parties on how to get infrastructure that can be done by the private sector off government books without necessarily burdening the private sector or necessary recourse to the government sector. Again, if this is not addressed and you promise to deliver infrastructure, what you are indirectly saying is that you are going to increase the public sector pace. That's what it means. So some detail is very important. Stimulating economic growth must be a specific chapter. And this is not just an economic issue, but stimulating it. And there are multiple issues by which you can stimulate economic growth. Productivity to creating sector champions to encouraging consumerism. You can consciously encourage consumerism to drive demand, rewarding innovation, and using government actions as the basis to stimulate economic growth. Having a productivity drive, having things like changing from export protected zone to special economic zones, using the love for African clothing as a basis for driving consumption of our clothing sector. Health tourism. If you see the number of foreigners around West Africa who come to Ghana for medical assistance, we can consciously drive this. I can go on and on. At some point, 35% of all major universities in Ghana were attended by Nigerians and people from other West African countries. That number has dropped significantly. We could not have a strategy to actually stimulate the use of education as a basis of driving or stimulating the economy. Creating aggregators. Creating special zones where people can buy without duty in order to drive it as part of tourism, especially when we are getting shopping malls here, so that they actually take the duty back just when they are leaving. And if you coordinate this, there are many, many ways that we can stimulate economic growth. Digital economy creates a complete opportunity. And again, there are many people who watch Netflix, use Facebook and all the rest. I don't know to what extent they are being taxed. Maybe I've not paid too much attention to it. But digital economy itself has not been tapped into fully. There is a politics of it, even though it has a very huge potential if we came together around it, and it can actually help us to leapfrog.